Hello, everyone. Welcome to Cloud Wars Live, where we explore today's digital revolution by speaking with business executives and thought leaders who are changing how the world lives, works, plays, learns, and dreams. Our guest today is Bruno Aziza, Group Vice President of Oracle Analytics, and this is a special episode of Cloud Wars Live brought to you by Oracle. To get started, you have had a terrific career. You've worked at some world-class companies. Tell us a little bit about what was it that drew you to Oracle and why you felt this was the right time to join in.
Well, thanks for saying that, Bob, and I'm sure a lot of the people in your audience I have connected with in the past. You're right, I've been in the business analytics world my entire career. I worked with very small companies in the space, like Alpine Data Labs and Sisense and others that I helped launch here in the US and globally. I worked for mid-sized companies like Business Objects back in the days when we bought Crystal and Acta, and then I also worked at Microsoft for 7 years in Seattle, and I'm now back in the Silicon Valley. I just started at Oracle about 7-8 months ago, and the reason why I came here is primarily, one is the people here. TK Anand, who works for Larry and runs this division, is a good friend of mine. I worked with him at Microsoft, and he had told me about what was going on at the company and really showed me the products and the innovation. And when I came in here to interview and met the rest of the team, the engineers that were focused on the next wave of analytics, particularly in the integration between AI and analytics, I was really impressed. Then I talked to partners and I talked to customers, and that's when kind of all the story came together as Oracle is uniquely positioned at the center of the database business and the application business, which are two leading businesses for Oracle, to really can help the industry go to its next phase and use analytics and AI to help organizations make better decisions and faster. And so the combination of time, this is the right time for the industry to approach the challenges we have differently. The people that are working on the problem are folks that I've either worked with or that I've got a lot of admiration for, and the technology assets that Oracle bring to the table are tremendous. And so I'm really excited about the opportunity to help this space move into its next phase.
Great. Bruno, I want to understand more about what that next phase is going to involve, but just to start off, what's the high level view if I'm running one of your customers these days? Everybody seems to be so passionate, so eager to get a better handle on analytics and the business value it can drive. Why is this the time when analytics is becoming so hot?
It's a great question. There are a lot of reasons for why we are where we are. If you kind of deconstruct where the industry's been, the first 10 years were really about centralization and creation of reports and dashboard, primarily by the IT organization. And that created a lot of frustration with business users who kind of rushed to solutions back then that were download and desktop tools that would enable business users to self-serve to the information. And that really created a lot of interest, a lot of attention, and great dashboards were built out of that. But around 2 years ago, the space realized that maybe the pendulum had swung a little too far, and now we had people that were playing with information that either they weren't supposed to have, and sometimes they would leave their company with data they weren't supposed to have on their desktop, or information that was inaccurate because it was misaligned. In this third phase, there's a set of trends that could really help organizations take advantage of the data. The first one is cloud as a disruptive force. The fact that if you are not a cloud-first analytics solution, you're going to have a lot of issues with data provisioning, but also data protection, right? It's one thing to give access to people to a lot of data, but you also want to make sure they're authorized for it, and you want to make sure that you've managed that relationship between data and people themselves. The second aspect of it is now, as you start evolving the use of analytics, it's no longer just the data scientists or maybe the engineers or maybe even the business analysts that need insights in their workflow. I mean, despite all the work that we've done over the last 30 years, only 35% of employees can use the data analytics tools that have been produced for them. So we have the opportunity to break through that, the glass ceiling, and get information to business leaders, line of business application folks that are maybe in the CRM workflow, maybe in an HCM workflow, in an application workflow where you don't require now for them to become business analysts. They're using an analytics as part of their workflow. And then here AI is a big role to play, because as augmentation is pushing this data and these insights, it's enabling business users to have this what we call continuous analysis workflow. So that's what's going on. We've got a lot of interest. We've tried this business analyst kind of led motion, and now it's time to break through that by giving more information, different profiles of folks. And we certainly feel that Oracle, we have a differentiated approach by having, I think 500 million customers and a leading application business. It really is going to enable us to help all these organizations.
Yeah, Bruno, that's a great overview of it, and that opportunity to get more of that continuous analysis into the hands of more people, the right stuff at the right time. So when you go in and meet with a mid-sized company, a big company, who is the decision maker on this sort of new wave of analytics?
So the decision makers really span across three areas. If you think about the chief data officer today, which they're that's a job that is growing, they are challenged with this idea of, okay, how do I build a data strategy that makes sense, not for 2019, but a data strategy that makes sense for the next 10 years. And so certainly we work with a lot of them on architecture design, their entire environment, how they should enable and secure at the same time. We have the senior directors of business intelligence, VP of analytics, and they are concerned with making sure analytics gets to people that can make decisions, right? The last thing that they want is build an army of service folks that are going to just basically be on an analysis treadmill. And so they have a big role to play there, and it's more of I would say an implementer role. Now the cloud here helps the VP of analytics and the senior directors of business intelligence, because they can provision an environment a lot faster than they could in the past, right? If you think about how do I deliver an analytics solution with Oracle Analytics Cloud today, you could do this in minutes. In the past, you had to install a database and provision the data and then train people to build reports. Very painful. But it also enables them to secure it, which is if I need to take off a user, I could do this almost instantly. And then there's the technical folks that might be enterprise architects who have to think about, now that you've built an information management layer, if you will, how do I integrate that with the rest of my architecture? So a typical example would be, how does analytics work with collaboration applications like a Slack or Messenger, any of those? How does my application work with the entire population? So for instance, Oracle Analytics is the only application today that natively integrates with Slack or any Messenger application that speaks 28 languages. So that's important for those enterprise architects, because they have to engineer not just for today, but they have to engineer for where they're going. So we work across all types of personas, if you will.
Yeah, and Bruno, a minute ago you mentioned the currently a big impact of AI, and that it's really going to grow. And I've read some things that you've written, and you've talked about augmented analytics. Tell us a little bit about that.
So the trend on augmented really, the genesis for it is, we've been talking a lot about artificial intelligence and how artificial intelligence is going to impact the world of work, if you will. And there's a lot of fear about, will AI take my job? I think if you read a lot of research from Andy McAfee or Tom Davenport or some of the folks that really researched what's going on, the real trend is augmentation. What that means is that we are creating now software that can augment the capabilities of the people that we have working on those hard problems. Doesn't mean it replaces them. It means that it enables them to do certain things a lot faster, a lot simpler. And a great example is data preparation. Today, 80% of an analyst's time is spent on preparing data. If you think about the insight pipeline, just to think that so much data, so much time is spent on just preparing, cleaning the data, it really is using the wrong tactics for the result. What you want to use this business analyst or this line of business person that really has reporting needs, you want to just get the data to them, integrated, clean, completed, and so forth. So we have spent a lot of time making sure that AI is integrated into the analytics workflow. So when you use Oracle Analytics Cloud, for instance, you'll see that when you import data, we automatically clean the data for you. We identify what type of data it is. So if it's social security numbers, for instance, we will hide it automatically for you. I mean, we'll still give you the choice if you want to see it or not, but we'll show you on the right side, you'll see all the options that we can automate for you in order to make the data ready for analysis. And that's an important step. There are many other examples just like that. Like for instance, now that we understand the data and its structure, we can auto-generate dashboards for you. We can suggest areas you can investigate and so forth. And all this is designed to augment the abilities of folks involved in analysis, because the point of data and AI and analytics is enables us to take action faster, right? We got to stop being in love with building more beautiful dashboards. That's not what's driving the bottom line. It's the actions of people because they have the data that is making results.
Yeah, and you know what you just described there about that need to make better decisions more quickly on a broader scale and be ready to turn that into execution. So much a part of today's digital economy. So Bruno, in this again, this white hot market of analytics, how would you say, what are 2 or 3 things that allows Oracle to differentiate itself from competitors?
Well, there are quite a few areas. Of course, it wouldn't be fair to take the rest of the session here to talk about them. The first one is augmented. We clearly have an advantage there. We have a lot of assets on artificial intelligence, and we're making artificial intelligence, applied and invisible. You see, I'm using A and I here. AI applied and invisible. And the reason for that is because it's applied to a workflow inside the application, and the value of it will come to you. You're not having to buy AI or build something we are just making that available as part of the applications that you're looking to use inside the database, right? So the fact that the database gets self-maintained and self-tuned and so forth, that's a result of AI work. The fact that we can clean data, build dashboards for you, that's a result of AI. It's AI at work, if you will. And inside our application business, with Oracle Applications for Applications, Oracle Analytics for Applications, we are making now available prepackaged content automatically because we understand this data. So you have an advantage when you partner with Oracle. You have a vendor that's not a typical business intelligence vendor. We're full stack platform. And we are in the middle of your database, your data needs. A lot of the corporate and data that enterprises rely on, it runs on the Oracle database. And we're embedded in your applications. And a lot of decisions and workflows are triggered in Oracle applications today. That's why we're unique for any customer, any prospect looking at the solution. And the customers we have, when I joined, the first thing that I did is I called our top customers, really span across small companies like ZS Wellness in the UK to some of the largest ones like Daimler-Benz or NHS and so forth. So, the fact that we have a cloud-first and AI-first analytics platform truly differentiates us from anybody else you might be looking at in the market.
Yeah. So, Bruno, before we get to hear some more about some of the customers you're having, at Oracle, clearly one of the hot products these days, in addition to the applications you mentioned, you touched on database, but the autonomous database now, it seems to really be kicking in. What are the unique ways in which Oracle Analytics can pair up with autonomous database to do things that nobody else can do?
Well, there are quite a few areas. The first one, and maybe the obvious one, is when you are thinking about your analytics need today, if you weren't choosing Oracle, the process would look something like you got to provision a database from some vendor in the cloud or on premise. Then you got to go buy maybe a separate analytics tool, and you got to plug that and so forth. And those two solutions are not particularly well integrated. We have hooks in our offer where you can just deploy the autonomous data warehouse with automated Oracle Analytics solutions coming from it. And there really are 2 flavors of it. The first one is a horizontal approach, which will take advantage of the Oracle machine learning capabilities, the spatial capabilities that are built inside a database, and make that available to you through Oracle Analytics, and you could go off and build any dashboard, any solution that you want. The second option is to go with a solution like Oracle Analytics for Applications, which now takes Oracle Analytics and the autonomous data warehouse and couples this with your application data in order to give you prepackaged content. Now, when you do that, you got to realize you don't really need to know where the data is, how the data is provisioned. We take care of all of that automatically, if you will, for you as a customer, which is tremendous value. You know, if you're trying to get this from anybody else out there, you're not going to be able to match the scale and the depth of capabilities we have. You know, think about other solutions that would require you to come out with an analytics solution built for application, and be a lot of data extraction and maintenance you'd have to do. We manage the entire pipeline for you on the cloud and the autonomous data warehouse.
So it sounds like broadly, the two sets of benefits are one, almost just like an efficiency scale, you free up a lot of the folks from doing some relatively low-level chores, like the 80% of the time cleansing and prepping the data, and allow them to get more out on the front end, right? Driving some additional business value. And then on the whole integration front, these things were built to work together, as opposed to customer having to cobble together separate things.
It's not just that you're getting it from the same vendor, it's also you're actually getting technical advantages from the integration of Autonomous Data Warehouse and the Oracle Analytics Cloud. And so those are significant. You know, I think about the issues any company has, right? You're talking about a small company and talking a large company. Today, the game is small team, big impact. How do you get to quick impact quickly with an integrated solution? And the combination of the Autonomous Data Warehouse and Oracle Analytics will get you there faster than any other solution in the market.
Yeah, and I like what you said there too a minute ago, Bruno, about applied and invisible. That's a long way from what you said, or described the earlier scenario of the analytics treadmill.
Yes, that's right. I mean, you know, so much attention has been spent on serving. You know, there's been really two motions, right? Either I serve the line of business folks, or now I create an army of business analysts, and then I ask my line of business folks to become business analysts. That motion does not work because it relies on a lot of people moving a lot of data and getting a lot of training. We want to make analysis as fluid, as liquid as we can inside the enterprise. That's really the only way that we'll be able to become, you know, to help companies be better companies, and in some way, you know, be a better society as well. We're involved in quite a few initiatives with the World Bee Association organization and many other nonprofits, where we're trying to apply this principle to other areas that aren't just the business, but also are impacting health and climate and so forth.
Right. So again, Bruno, it sounds like another one of your examples about that very important issue, small team, big impact.
Yes, and you know, this is one of the trends that we see customers going through. I'll give you an example, maybe the small team you don't expect, right? The NHS, the National Health Service in the UK, is a fairly large organization. I think it's one of the top employers in the world. But when they got started with data analytics, they grappled with this issue of, well, how do we take a team of 2 DBAs and make that a turning point on how we use data for the NHS? Well, now they have saved $1.5 billion using data analytics. The chief data officer, Nina, has been on stage many times because she has won the this year's Women in Technology Award for not only saving the organization a lot of money, but also being able to do it with a fairly small team and doing fraud detection at a scale that was never done before. So that's a great example of a small team, big impact initiative, if you will. The company that you might think, well, they got all the resources in the world. The other trend that we see with customers is this idea of openness to more data, right? In order to be able to do analysis, I mean, if you think about any analysis you need to make on your daily, on your daily decisions today, you're relying on at least 5 data sources, 5 data points to make this happen. So Skanska, which is one of the largest construction companies in the world, you might have seen them where you live, had a large SQL Server deployment. They also had a large data set on the outside, and of course they had Oracle database and Oracle applications. He came to our Oracle Analytics Summit just about a month ago and showed how he was able to reduce defects and reduce injuries on a lot of those sites by using Oracle Analytics. So this is an example of how you can get information from multiple systems together so you can come out with insights. And then finally, the last trend that we see customers go through is this idea of collaboration. So if you remember what analytics has gone through, right? The second phase was really about download and desktop tools that were forcing business analysts to stay in their environment. We call that here the Las Vegas effect of business intelligence, right? What stays in your BI tool, what happens in your BI tool stays in your BI tool. And we don't like that, because if that's the model, the only way out is hire more business analysts or data scientists, or train line of business folks to become business analysts. And we don't want that. We want line of business analysts to be able to make decisions. So Riverbed, who's another customer that came to the OA Summit, has created an application that goes beyond just a business analyst. It's using our day-by-day mobile application, which enables salespeople to understand data off of their mobile application. Now, our mobile application has not been talked about a lot, but it's an application that we rebuilt from scratch. Today, most mobile analytics applications are essentially the representation of a web dashboard this vendor has built onto your phone. That's not what we did. We understood that mobile being the next interface for most of information workers today. I mean, if you think about where you're checking most of your email, I'm willing to bet you're checking it most of the time. Communication occurs on your phone. What we realize is, well, if we have that as a changing paradigm, we also can use the location of the phone to determine where is this person at this moment. We can use their calendar. We can use their preferences, their usage pattern to cater to them analysis that is really personalized for them. It's really hard to do if you're a company that has not a ton of exposure to a lot of use cases and a lot of enterprises. But luckily, we work with enterprises across the world. So the great example is if your data is in English, but your user is in France and they speak French, when they ask of their phone the question in French, even though the data was never in French, we'll translate that for them and we'll spit it back to them in their language of preference. We do that for 28 languages. No other vendor does that. But it's a representation of where the world of work is changing and evolving to cloud first, AI first. Augmentation is tremendous. And the interface is no longer your laptop. You're trying to enable people that are on the move constantly. And the machines need to serve that need a lot better. And you won't be able to do it if your approach is a download and desktop tool, relying on business analysts sitting in their desk.
And it's interesting, Bruno, what you said there, because the 28 languages, if you take that attribute and apply it back in the second generation, download and desktop, some people might say, so what? It doesn't matter. But that reflects an archaic way of doing business, right? The new world is not download and desktop. It's going to be global. So you're going to need to have that multiple effective languages.
That's correct. And even if at your company, let's say the language is English, but you're looking to expand to other geographies, or let's say that your business relies on an ecosystem of partners and so forth, who might not speak your language. Think about how quickly we can enable that collaboration to happen if the platform enables you to do that a lot faster. And that's really kind of what we have to break through this business analyst-led model. And frankly, this is what's exciting here is that, there are only a few companies that can enable you to do that understand the application environment of customers. And we're certainly well positioned. I mean, just this week, we do this weekly show, if you will, where we interview customers and ask them about their best practice. And this week, I think we published the story of Sisal and how they were able, with just a small team, to prevent fraud before it happens, right? And so how did they do that? How did they go from a standard fraud dashboard to an analytics platform that now prevents fraud before it happens? Coca-Cola, they were able to determine customers who were not customers. How do you do that? Well, the power of the cloud and the ability of integrated AI inside a cloud infrastructure enables us to crunch more data, to crunch it faster for you, and to give you the information almost before you think you need it. I mean, if you think the best analytics solution is the solution that tells you something that you don't know about yourself. And if we can enable that, I think that's how we start innovating and how we start enabling our customers to innovate.
So that forward look toward innovation, I think, was captured by what you described, right? The state of the art for a while was fraud detection. Well, rather than just detecting it, why not prevent it, as you described it?
Yeah, exactly. Find it before it occurs. identify pockets of customers even before you thought they might be customers. What are the questions you're not asking yourself that you should be asking? Sure, you can hire a team of 100 data scientists to come up with them, but the machine should be able to tell you that. And then it's up to you to determine if you want to pursue the investigation or not. There are lots of great examples. I mean, another one, I think last week, the video we had on Daimler-Benz, for instance. Daimler wanted to do some segmentation and wanted to identify cars and how car owners would be more likely to buy another category of cars in categories that even match the segmentation. One of them was a high-end car type, and the other one was a low-end car type. The machine basically scanned through the data and said, there is an area here of cross-sell that you could probably build a campaign on that you weren't thinking about. I mean, if you're following us, you want to watch the video, because Mark, who is the person in charge of this initiative, not only gives you some good tips on how he did it, but he also introduces this idea that it's okay to question the machine. So again, going back to the topic we started this with, AI and humans, they're not replacing each other, they're collaborating. Sometimes it can be augmented, and sometimes, humans have particularities of judgment that are required in order to make the machine better.
So Bruno, we've seen over the last few years, this extraordinary pace of modern technology's evolution, right? From not very long ago, cloud applications were, okay, they were in the cloud, but they weren't harnessing the full power of the cloud. If you look out a little bit, where do you see the analytics field headed in this environment, as you've described it, cloud first, AI first?
I think, 5 years ago, everybody, I think, was talking about cloud as it was, a fad, if you will, or maybe something that you were just testing on the side. I think increasingly, the application business to start with, right? If you think about where are decisions being made today, and where are your employees spending most of their time today, they're spending it in the cloud because they're most likely using a cloud-based application. And then if you look at some of the later stats in the industry, I think 87% of new database projects are database in the cloud. So there's a clear movement of not just users interacting with the cloud constantly, but also now all our data moving there. So I think what this does is it forces enterprises to think about, well, how can I get there as fast as possible, but how can I take my environment and migrate it? And it's not going to be a switch. You're going to have to live in a hybrid environment, probably for a good amount of time. And then once you get maybe 90% in the cloud, you're probably going to have a hybrid environment over there as well. And so we're thinking about a lot of those consequences, living on-prem only, living hybrid prem and cloud, and living on multiple clouds. And so how can we help you do that? And there's some clear benefits of the cloud, and you can talk about elasticity and cost and all that is, of course, is well understood. I think what people need to also understand is the relationship between your employees, your people, and the data. I'll give you an example. Outfront Media was a company that was planning on deploying an analytics platform using our cloud. And they were planning for their deployment over 3 years. And a certain number of people onboarding the platform. They onboarded their people 3 times faster than they could, simply because it was a secured cloud that performed. And so if you're thinking now as a chief data officer or an enterprise architect, what are the tactics I can use in order to accelerate the path of innovation of my enterprise, of my company? You're going to want an integrated analytics platform that is cloud first. Don't fall for the old solutions that were cloudified, right? I mean, we're really truly talking about cloud first, because once you're cloud first, now you have built services that are taking advantage of the cloud. So one of the functionalities that Oracle Analytics has is the functionality Explain. Explain is able to crunch a large amount of data, primarily because it's leveraging cloud capabilities. And so you got to think about that as well. As you move to the cloud, it's going to be a step, but also when you get to the cloud, pick something that was cloud first. Don't go for something that was cloudified, if you will, because you might run into some surprises.
Yeah, and the world's very unforgiving these days in business, right, Bruno? You don't have 2 or 3 years to try to play catch up.
That's correct. I mean, a lot of the startups that we work with, they see data and certainly the Analytics Cloud as a key differentiator to take on their maybe older competitors. And so that's something to watch out for if you're not looking at some of the solutions that we're describing here.
So, Bruno, a couple things here to be sure to touch on with you. You've talked a lot about the virtues of the cloud, and there's certainly lots of them, and you've articulated that very nicely. Is there also a cost savings opportunity with the cloud?
Absolutely, and I think that's what most people think about. And I was just with a customer in England just about a month ago, and they were explaining to me that they moved from 1,000 users on premise, this is a large bank, to over 23,000 users in the cloud, and they saved money. So more users in the cloud, I mean, 20 times more, right? And savings. And so for me, that's very encouraging. I would not let that just drive your decision because, like I said, it's great to onboard folks. I was mentioning the Outfront media example, but you also have a lot more control with the cloud. Control on, of course, how much capacity you give it to it, but also when users need to come off, it's a lot easier to undo that than if you had a download and desktop solution that would really put your data at risk.
Yeah, perfect, Bruno. And what about, we've seen the role in the emergence of the cloud, the role of partners has become so important, right, as force multipliers. What's the role of the partner community and alliances and so forth with Oracle Analytics?
Oh, it's tremendous. We've had a large amount of partners for a very long time. And I think about, of course, the large ones like Deloitte, PwC, and KPMG, who came to the Oracle Analytics Summit. And not only these companies are leaders in the Magic Quadrant, they're leaders in their field, and certainly they have thousands of consultants that can help you. We also have a very large ecosystem like the Interrail and the Cubics and large practices, if you will, but specialized practice on a particular domain. I would really encourage you to take a look at them. At the Oracle Analytics Summit, we had about 40, I think the number was 42 exact. The answer is always 42, I guess. With 42 partner companies join us for an afternoon of a partner advisory council at the Open World in San Francisco. We have 400, I think, that have signed up for an entire day of advisory council. So you should know that not only we rely on them to help you and train you and deploy your solutions, but we also want to get information back from them so we can build better products and frankly, better content for you. A great example is it was through Deloitte that the idea of creating Udemy courses came just, 90 days ago. We put 2 courses on Udemy. As of today, we have over 12,000 people that have enrolled and got trained on Oracle Analytics, and this training is free. And so we want to participate in the ecosystem as much as you can. And frankly, we realize that the way that we can scale and help is when you don't have to go through us.
Yeah. And Bruno, last thing, want to be sure that you get a chance to share how folks can find out more about what's going on. I mean, your YouTube channel seems like you're telling some great stories there.
Well, thanks for saying that. So there is the oracle.com/business analytics. Of course, that's where all our resources are. The various products we have and the tools you need there for training. I'd say if you haven't looked us up on Udemy, absolutely take a look at the free training there. It's a fantastic tool to make sure your people and then yourself can build with your software. And then finally, I would say we want you to connect with our customers directly. And that's why we have created this weekly video program called Destination Insight, where I essentially interview our customers. And I ask them what they did, what they learned, what are some of the obstacles they had to deal with that they can share with you, so you don't have to deal with those obstacles. And so that's on YouTube. It's a great channel. And what I want to make sure you understand is watch the video and then go on LinkedIn and reach out to that person, because they are dying to tell you about their story. We have a very engaged and buoyant, if you will, community, and we want to make sure that this finds way to people listening here.
I think those customer stories, and especially because what you've described here today, it isn't like I'll go with Oracle Analytics because it pretty much does the same, but it's 5% less expensive, right? You know, you are talking about generational leaps ahead in helping companies move faster, make better decisions, deploy their resources more effectively, get the AI magic going into what they're doing, and get in line with their customers more than they've ever been able to before.
That's right. I mean, these customers tell you fantastic stories about how they were enabling folks that were frankly forgotten by the analytics opportunity. I mean, you know, like I was saying earlier, this 35% is a bad number. You know, we call it the silent majority. I mean, you get 65% of people in your enterprise that are in the dark. And so just think about that. How much more innovation, even if you could enable 10% more, how many more ideas could you get to win in the marketplace? And what company do you want to partner to make that happen? The competition will offer you great download and desktop tools, and they'll put beautiful dashboards in front of you that will be disconnected with the data you trust and disconnected with the application that you're using. We're here to help you if you have applications and if you have a database. And so I think that differentiates pretty well.
Perfect. Bruno, that's a wonderful story. Thanks very much for making the time to tell what's going on at Oracle Analytics.
Well, thank you, Bob, for having me.
Perfect. And thanks to Oracle for sponsoring this episode of Cloud Wars Live. And especially thanks to all of you folks for watching. We'll hope you tune in again soon.